A session on percentages. A question for you, as always. Did you get yes as the answer? If so, that's not correct, and you must come back to this slide after watching this video. Let's start from the basics. To find p% of q, multiply p with q and divide it by 100. To find what percentage is p of q, divide p by q and multiply by 100. Very important. To find percentage growth or percentage change, apply new value minus old value divided by old value times 100. The denominator, old value, is very important. Let us now understand a smart approach to percentage increase or decrease. 50% increase. Now, mathematically, this would mean that for a value p, 50% increase means p times 1 plus 50 divided by 100. That's p times 1 plus 0.5, and therefore p becomes 1.5p. P was the original value. 50% increase was 0.5p, and therefore, in effect, p becomes 1.5p. So why apply so much of calculation? We know p is the original value. 50% increase means 0.5p is added, and therefore p has to become 1.5p. We can do this directly very fast. Try this one. 70% increase. P plus 0.7p. It should be 1.7p. 20% decrease. P reduces by 0.2p. This should become 0.8p. 400% increase. 400% of p is 4p. Remember, 4p is the increase, the original value. P is anyway there, so p has to become p plus 4p equals 5p. Sometimes we commit that mistake. We think that 400% increase would make p 4p. That is not correct. 4p is the increment, and therefore p has to become p plus 4p. That is 5p. Next, p becomes 10p. What was the percentage increase? See, p has become 10p, so the increment is 9p, which means 900% increase. Some of us will commit the mistake of choosing 1000%. That is not correct. The increase is 900%. Try solving these yourself. P increased by 30%. What should be its value? P is the original value. 30% increase means 0.3p added to it, so p becomes 1.3p. Decreased by 40%, p minus 0.4p equals 0.6p. Increased by 500%, p plus 5p, that is 6p. Decreased by 300%. P minus 3p, that is negative 2p. Increased by 5 times. That means p plus 5p. P becomes 6p, and that is a 500% increase. Increased to 5 times. That means p has become 5p, and therefore the increase is 400%. Increased to 700% of its value. So p has become 7p. That is a 600% increase, and the new value of p is 7p. Increased by 700% of its value. That means 7p is the increment. So p plus 7p equals 8p is the new value. 700% is the increase. Let's practice some percentage increase or decrease problems. Look at this question here. Please pause the video, try solving it yourself. The price of X increased by 40%, decreased by 50%, and finally increased by 60%. What was the net percentage increase or decrease? The concept is that whenever the question asks percentage value, whether it's percentage increase, percentage decrease, or percentage value of something, rather than assuming a variable such as X, assume the base value to be 100. Be aware of the changing bases during calculations. So in this question, we assume that the original price of X was a 100. Now a 40% increase on this makes it 140. Then this 50% decrease would not be on a base of 100. This 50% decrease would be on a base of 140. That is the main concept here. Therefore, 140 after a 50% decrease becomes 70. And now there is a 60% increase. So the 60% increase would be on a base of 70. So 70 with a 60% increase becomes 70 times 1.6 equals 112. We started with 100 and we ended with 112. Therefore, the net percentage increase is 12%. The answer is 12% increase. Look at this question. Please try solving it yourself. Let's assume that the price originally was 100 in 2007. It decreased by 50%, so 100 became 50. Now 50 increased by 200% in 2008, so 50 becomes 3 times, that is 150. Now 150 decreased by 20%, so 150 times 0.8, that's 120. Finally, 120 increased by 50%, that's 120 times 1.5, that is 180. So overall, 100 became 180. That is an 80% increase. Look at this question now. The price of oil has increased by 25%. By what percentage should the consumption be reduced to avoid any increase in total expenditure on oil? The concept involved in these questions is that you must form an equation among the given variables. There are 3 entities involved here: the price, the consumption, and the expenditure. What is the relationship among these 3? The relationship is that price times consumption equals expenditure. Now, originally assume numbers which are friendly. Let's assume that the price is $1, the consumption is 100 units, and therefore the expenditure would be $100. This is the original case. After a 25% increase, price would become 1.25. As per the condition in the question, expenditure should still remain 100. And therefore, let us assume that the new consumption is C units. New case, 1.25 is the new price. The new expenditure is still 100, and the consumption is C units. That would give us a value of C. C equals 80. The new consumption is 80. So the consumption dropped from 100 to 80, and therefore a 20% decrease is the right answer choice. Try solving this yourself. The price has increased by 50%. By what percentage should the expenditure increase if the consumption has been reduced by 20%? So the same relationship applies. Price times consumption equals expenditure. Earlier, 1 times 100 equals 100. Same thing. Later, the price has increased by 50%. So 1 becomes 1.5. The consumption has been reduced by 20%. So this 100 becomes 80. And therefore, the new expenditure would be 1.5 times 80, which is 120. So the expenditure grew from 100 to 120. So the answer is 20% increase. Look at this one. The price of oil has increased by 50% after decreasing by 20%. Alright, same relationship applies. Price times consumption equals expenditure. Now, price we assume to be $1. Consumption we assume to be 100 units, and therefore expenditure would be 1 times 100. That is $100. Now what happens to price? It increases by 50% after decreasing by 20%. So 1 becomes 0.8, and then it increases by 50% to become 1.2. So later the price is 1.2, and the consumption has been reduced by 20%. So this 100 becomes 80. Therefore later the expenditure is 1.2 times 80 equals 96. So what was 100 has now become 96, and therefore the answer is 4% decrease. Let's look at some percentage-based general questions. So far, we did percentage increase and decrease based questions. Let's now look at some general percentage questions. Some GMAT-like practice questions here. Look at this one. It's fairly simple. These are the answer choices. 20% of 50% of x. 20% means 0.2. 50% means 0.5. Therefore, 0.2 times 0.5 times x equals 40% of y, means 0.4y. So 0.1x equals 0.4y. What percentage of x is y? The question is asking the value of y divided by x, which would turn out to be 0.1 divided by 0.4, or 1/4, or 25%. That was an easy question. Let's look at the next one. These are your answer choices. It's not a difficult question to solve, but the question is how to solve it in less than a minute. The expense is $100 in both the cases. The quantity is 5 gallons lesser after the increase. So the difference between the old quantity, let's say Q1, and the new quantity, Q2, after the increase is 5 units. Now Q1 would be expenditure divided by price. Expenditure is 100. Price, let's say, is P, and Q2 would be what? See, still the expenditure is 100. Price is 1.25p because of the 25% increase. This is Q1. This is Q2. And the difference is 5. So see, we got an equation in one variable, very easy to solve. We get P equals 4. So what was the original price of oil per gallon? The answer is $4. Look at this one. These are the answer choices. 80% of the salesmen. So 0.8s, and each salesman is involved in 5 such sessions. So practically, it is 0.8s working 5 times each. Therefore, it becomes 0.8s times 5. And this figure has to be equal to 40% of the guess, 0.4g. This will give us relationship between S and G. 4s equals 0.4g. Therefore, we can say that G equals 10s. Now, what percentage of attendees involved in the one-on-one sessions? It is 80% of salesmen involved, so 0.8s, and 40% of guests involved, so 0.4g, divided by total attendees. That is S plus G multiplied by 100. This is what we require. We have a relationship between G and S here, so wherever we find G, we can replace it with 10s. So we have 0.8s plus 0.4g. That becomes 0.8s plus 4s divided by S plus G. That is S plus 10s. This expression simplifies to 4.8s divided by 11s, which is approximately 44%. C is the correct answer choice. It's a session on mixtures. I have a question for you, as usual. Did you get 10%? Did you get that in 30 seconds? How do we get this in 30 seconds? See, the point is that 300 liters of water has been added. So total solution, which was 100 liters, now becomes 400 liters. The total volume has become 4 times, and therefore the concentration would become 1/4. 1/4 of 40%. That is 10%. That's how you solve it very quickly. Let's move to the first concept. When 2 elements are involved, that means 2 things are mixed up. Let's get down to learning by examples. The first example here, 200 liters solution contains 40% alcohol. How much alcohol should be added to make it 50% alcohol solution? This is a typical question that appears in virtually all the aptitude examinations, and the right way of solving this question is to have a table of content. So earlier, total, alcohol, and water are our 3 columns. Total is 200 liters of solution, out of which 40% is alcohol, and rest is therefore water. So total is 200. Alcohol is 40% of that, and therefore 80, and rest water. Therefore is 120. So 200, 80, and 120. Now later, some amount of alcohol is being added. If we assume that X liters of alcohol is added, 80 would become 80 plus X. And remember, total would also become 200 plus X. So alcohol increases, but the total volume also increases. Nothing changes with water. So later, total would be 200 plus X. Alcohol would be 80 plus X, and water remains 120. Now the amount of alcohol added is to make this solution 50% alcohol solution. Therefore, 80 plus X out of 200 plus X should be 50%. Solve it for X. We get X equals 40. A smarter way of doing this can be that if alcohol is 50%, imagine water would also be 50%, and therefore 120 is 50%. Therefore, total volume is 240. 200 became 240, and therefore the amount of alcohol added was 240 minus 200 equals 40 liters. Let's attempt a similar question. Please pause the video, solve it yourself. So earlier, 500 liters of solution which had 40% alcohol. So total alcohol, water, 500. Alcohol is 40% of 500. That is 200. And water is remaining 300. How much water should be added? So this time alcohol is not being added, water is being added, to reduce the concentration from 40% to 30%. We assume that X liters of water is added. So water will become 300 plus X. Alcohol will remain 200, and total will become 500 plus X. So later, total 500 plus X, alcohol remains 200, water 300 plus X. Now this part is 30%. So 200 divided by 500 plus x equals 0.3 or 30%. We solve it. The logic I have applied here is that if 200 is 30%, then 200 divided by 0.3 equals total, which is 500 plus x. Solve it for x. We get x equals 166.67, or 500 divided by 3. Let's do one more question on this concept. Please pause the video, solve it yourself. Now, there are two steps involved here. Originally, total alcohol, water are the three columns. 10 liters is the total volume, out of which 30% is alcohol, rest is water. If 6 liters of the solution is removed, see, 10 will become 4. And if 10 is reducing by 60%, each of the two contents would also reduce by 60% each. So later, after the first step, 10 becomes 4, 60% less, so 3 would also reduce by 60% and become 3 times 0.4 equals 1.2, and water would become 7 times 0.4 equals 2.8. So the new content would be 4, 1.2, and 2.8. Now there is one more step involved. The flask is replenished with pure alcohol. So now 4 would become 10, the total would become 10 now, and only alcohol is added. So this 1.2 would become 7.2. Nothing changes with water. So this is the new table of content: 10, 7.2, and 2.8. What is the percentage of alcohol in the flask after the entire operation? The answer is 7.2 divided by 10. That is 72%. Let's move on to the next concept. When 3 or more elements are involved, that means if 3 or more things are mixed up. Let's get on to learning by examples. Look at this question. Please try solving it yourself. The concept involved in these questions is that assume volumes in the given proportion and then follow the tabular approach. So if the ratios are 2, 3, and 5, assume volumes as 200, 300, 500, and then find out the respective values. So 200 of 30% concentration, 300 of 40%, and 500 of 60%. The amount of alcohol exactly would be 30% of 200 plus 40% of 300 plus 60% of 500. The sum turns out to be 480. 480 is the amount of alcohol, and total volume is 200 plus 300 plus 500. That is 1,000. Percentage of alcohol in the resulting solution would be 480 divided by 1,000. That turns out to be 48%. Let's practice a few questions on this concept. Please try solving it yourself. So the table of content goes total, alcohol percent, and alcohol absolute liters. The ratios are 1 to 2 to 2. We assume 100 liters, 200 liters, and 200 liters. The respective percentage values are 20%, 50%. Pure alcohol means 100%. So 100 liters of 20% alcohol. That means that the absolute volume of alcohol in the solution is 20 liters. 20% of 100, 20 liters. Second would be 200 because of this 2 here, and 50%, so 50% of 200, which is 100, and then 200 liters of pure alcohol. So 200 pure alcohol means 100%, and the absolute volume of alcohol would be 200 here. Now let's find the totals. The total volume is 500, and the total volume of alcohol here is 320. Overall alcohol percentage is what the question is asking. Total is 500. 320 is the absolute volume of alcohol, and this is what we have to determine. So, very simple. The answer is 320 divided by 500. That is 64%. A DS question of this concept. Please pause the video and solve it yourself. The two statements are these. Statement 1. We know that if the ratio is 1 to 3, we can assume the total volumes to be 100 and 300. First solution contains 40%. The second solution contains 50%. So we would be able to determine the absolute volumes. This would be 40 here, and this would be 150. 40% of 100 plus 50% of 300 turns out to be 190, and the total is 400. Please don't spend time in figuring out these values. The point is that the percentage value can be determined, and therefore statement 1 is sufficient. Statement 2 talks about only the volume of the first solution. It says nothing about the second solution, and therefore statement 2 is not sufficient. 1 is sufficient, 2 is not. A is the correct answer choice. This is a session on the very interesting concept of alligation. Look at the question here. What did you get? Did you get 7:1? Did you get that in less than 30 seconds? If not, visit this slide again after watching the video. Let's start from the basics. The concept is that alligation is used when the result is given and the ratio has to be found. If you saw the last video on mixtures, there the questions used to be on the lines that if 20% alcohol solution and 50% alcohol solution are mixed in the ratio 2:3, what is the percentage of alcohol in the resulting solution? So in that case, we could use the weighted average directly. In this case, it is a bit different. Reverse the question. The question is that in what ratio should 30% alcohol solution and 80% alcohol solution be mixed to get 50% alcohol solution? So, see, the result is given. The result is 50% alcohol solution. And the two qualities are given, 30% and 80%. The ratio has to be determined. In such cases where the result is given and the ratio has to be determined, alligation ends up saving a lot of time. So let's delve deeper into the concept. The way it works is, first of all, write the two qualities. The two qualities involved are 30% alcohol solution and 80% alcohol solution. So the two qualities here would be 30% and 80%, or simply 30 and 80. In the middle, write the result. The result is 50% alcohol solution, or simply 50. At the bottom would come the two quantities. I will explain how this works. Now take the difference between quality A and result, and similarly between quality B and result, to get the two respective quantities. Now this difference, the difference between quality A and result, will give quantity B, and the difference between quality B and result will give quantity A. And this would be the ratio between two quantities, quantity A and quantity B, in which they were mixed. Let's take this example to make this more clear. Don't worry, in case you have not got it till now, after solving a few questions, you will see that it works very, very well. So 30% and 80% are mixed to form 50% alcohol solution. The two qualities are 30, 80. The result is 50, and now we take the difference. 30 and 50. The difference is 20. Don't worry about the sign. The difference is 20. And 80 and 50. The difference is 30. So that's what matters. 30 and 50, 80 and 50. 30 minus 50, the difference is 20. 80 minus 50, the difference is 30. So the ratio turns out to be 30 to 20. And this ratio represents the quantities of A and B. Okay, this value here represents the quantity for this respective quality, and this value represents the quantity for this respective quality. Intuitively, as well, you can see that 50, the result is closer to 30, and therefore the quantity of 30. This quality must be higher than the quantity of this quality. Okay, so the answer turns out to be, very simply, 30:20, or 3:2. You may want to watch the last few minutes in this video once more to understand this concept really well, because this concept is unconventional, generally not covered in most of the GMAT books, and it does end up saving a lot of time on the test. Now let's take some examples. Two qualities are 2 and 10. The resultant quality is 7. We have to find the ratio of the two qualities used. So see how quickly we can solve it. 2 and 10 are the two qualities. 7 is the resultant quality. The difference between 2 and 7 is 5. The difference between 10 and 7 is 3. Therefore, the required ratio is 3 to 5. So this can actually be solved in like 30 seconds. Look at this question. Please pause the video, try solving it yourself. Now there are two types of employees, clerks and managers. Clerks earn $40,000. Managers earn $120,000. I am writing 120 for $120,000. The overall average is 50. So let's take the difference. 40 and 50. The difference is 10. 120 and 50. The difference is 70. 70:10, or 7:1, is the ratio of clerks and managers. Remember, this is the ratio. These are not the absolute numbers. The question says that there are 700 clerks in the company. So clerks are 700. Then how many managers? The answer should be 100. Look at this one. Please pause the video and try solving it yourself. The selling price is $80 and the profit margin is 50%. That means 40 is the cost price. Profit margin, remember, is always calculated on the selling price. So if 80 is the selling price, 50% of 80, 40 is the cost price. Now this cost price of 40 has been reached by mixing two things: freely available water with a cost price of 0 and alcohol with a cost price of $100. Now 100 and 0 have been mixed to get a quality of 40. So the differences are 60 and 40. The ratio of quantities mixed turns out to be 3:2. That means for every 3 liters of freely available water, 2 liters of $100 alcohol were used, and the correct answer is 3:2. Look at this one. Please pause the video. Try solving it yourself. Now, the first quality involved here is 3:1. So it becomes 3 parts of iron out of 4 parts. The quality here is the proportion of iron out of the total. Never take the ratio, 3:1, as the quality. That won't be correct. Quality needs to be a percentage or proportion. Always take quality as the quantity out of the total quantity. Okay, so 3/4 is the quality here. The other quality becomes 1 out of 5. It is 1:4. So 1 out of 5 parts is iron. And now when the two are mixed, the ratio is 1:1. So here the resultant quality is 1/2. Now take the difference, 3/4 and 1/2. Don't worry about the sign. The difference is 1/4. 1/2 and 1/5. The difference is 3/10. To get rid of the denominators, we multiply both the fractions with 20. We get 6:5. Okay, now please understand, this 6:5 is the ratio of total quantity, A versus B. That means if 6 units of A were used, 5 units of B were used. It says the resultant had 110 pounds of copper. Resultant has half copper and half iron. Therefore, the resultant overall had 220 pounds of the material. That means A and B together contributed to 220 pounds. The ratio is 6:5. If A is 6K, B is 5K. The total is 220. That means K equals 20, and therefore quantity of A used is 6K. That is 120. And the quantity of B used is 5K. That is 100. What is the question asking? The quantity of ore A used. The answer is 120. Look at this one. Please pause the video, try solving it yourself. Now in this case, 1:2. So boys are 1 out of 3 parts. In section B, boys are 3 out of 4 parts. On combining, boys are 1 out of 2 parts. Take the difference, 1/4, 1/6. To remove the fractions, multiply both the fractions by 12. We get 3:2. This ratio, 3:2, remember, is the ratio of total students in Section A and Section B. The question is, what was the ratio of students in the 2 sections? The answer is 3:2. This is a session on ratio, proportion, variation. Look at this question here. Now see, speed has to be a function of 2 factors. Speed would be the product of frequency of leaps and the length of leaps. There is a dog. There is a cat. Dog's frequency is less. Cat takes 5 for every 4 leaps of dog. So frequency of dog is 4, and frequency of cat is 5. Dog's 3 leaps are equal to cat's 4. Now come to think of it, many students will commit this mistake, that they will put a 3 for dog and 4 for cat. That is not correct. 3D equals 4C. So which one is bigger? D is bigger. See, D divided by C equals 4 divided by 3, right? So 4 has to come for D, and 3 has to come for C. So 4 comes here, and 3 comes here. And therefore their speeds are in the ratio 16:15. Now the speed of cat is given, 6. Therefore the speed of dog, 6 times 16 divided by 15, which turns out to be 6.4 meters per second. Let's start from the basics. The concept of ratio. Questions involving ratio between two elements, A and B. Example, look at this one. If you have seen the alligation video, you would find it easy to solve. This question involves ratio between two elements, boys and girls, in this case. There are many ways of solving it. Through alligation, how do we do it? In Section A and in Section B, the quality we are taking is the proportion of boys out of total. 1 out of 1 plus 2, which is 3. Same ratio for Section B. 3 boys out of 3 plus 1, 4 students. And the result is 1 out of 2 boys. You see 1 divided by 1 plus 1 equals 1/2. Take the difference. This is 1/4. This is 1/6. To eliminate the fractions, multiply both sides by 12. We get 3 and 2, and that is the ratio of total number of students in A versus B. That is what the question asked. Other way can be the conventional weighted average method, that 1 divided by 3 times A plus 3 divided by 4 times B equals 1/2 times A plus B. It's the same thing. In fact, alligation is a simplification of weighted average. If you see closely, the two would eventually do the same subtraction, and eventually the same ratio would turn out. So this was an example of a ratio question. Proportion. These questions involve equating two different ratios. So the ratio between two elements, A and B, and another two elements, C and D, are involved in solving these questions. Let's take an example. The ratio of A to B is given, and then when A is increased by some quantity and B is decreased by some other quantity, the ratio becomes something else. Then the value of 2A plus 3B has been asked. It's a favorite GMAT question. This has a key concept involved. The key concept is that if A divided by B equals 1/3, we cannot say that A equals 1 and B equals 3. What we can say is that if A equals 1, then B equals 3. If A equals 1 million, B equals 3 million. If A equals -1,000, B equals -3,000. So whatever the constant is, it is common to both A and B. Therefore, we can say that A equals 1K and B equals 3K. So I assume that the absolute values of A and B are K and 3K respectively. Now let's see what's happening here. When A is increased by 20, that means K is increased by 20. B is decreased by 40, that means 3K minus 40. The ratio changes to 1/4. All right, now let's solve it for K. We have 4K plus 80 equals 3K minus 40. K equals -120 is what we get. 2A plus 3B will be 2K plus 9K. So that's equal to 11K. And we have the value of K, -120. So this turns out to be 11 times -120 equals -1,320. We covered ratio. We covered proportion. Now let's look at variation. Variation are questions involving the proportionality sign or use of a constant. Example, A varies directly with square of B and inversely with C. When B is 20, C is 5, and A is 100. We have to find C when A is 60 and B is 8. A varies directly with square of B and inversely with C. So we can say A is proportional to B squared and A is proportional to 1 divided by C. Combining the two statements, we can say that A is proportional to B squared divided by C. Now the main concept is that we have to remove the proportionality sign. A constant comes in. So if A is proportional to B squared divided by C, we can say that A equals K B squared divided by C, where K is a constant. Now let's put the first set of values given here. When B is 20, C is 5, and A equals 100. When we put these values here, we will be able to determine the value of K. Putting these values, we determine that K equals 5 divided by 4. Therefore, we know that the relationship is A equals 5 divided by 4 times B squared divided by C. This is the relationship. Now, in the second case, A equals 60 and B equals 8. We know the value of K, we know A, and we know B. The value of C can be determined by putting in all the values in the expression. We put these values here. and we get the value of C as 4/3. So we have covered the basics of all the three topics: ratio, proportion, and variation. Let us now take some examples. Look at this question. You have to find out the value of A divided by C, A divided by D, A ratio B ratio C, A ratio B ratio C ratio D. Please pause the video and solve it yourself. A divided by C is very simply A divided by B times B divided by C. So this is equal to 1 divided by 4 times 3 divided by 8. The answer is 3 ratio to 32. A divided by D would be A divided by B times B divided by C times C divided by D. So we just found A divided by B times B divided by C, which is 3 divided by 32. We just need to multiply this with C divided by D, which is 2 divided by 5. So 6 divided by 160, which is 3 divided by 80. The answer is 3 ratio 80. A ratio B ratio C. This is very interesting. See, A divided by B here is 1/4, and B divided by C is 3/8. To find the common ratio, the two B's involved, the B in this ratio and the B in this ratio, have to be the same. So 1/4 and 3/8, 4 and 3. The LCM is 12. So let's write A divided by B as 3 divided by 12 and B divided by C as 12 divided by 32. Now you see B here is 12 and B here also is 12. So the common ratio is 3 to 12 to 32. The answer is 3 ratio 12 ratio 32. Now in the last case, you may want to once pause the video and solve it yourself. We know this much. This is 3 ratio 12 ratio 32 ratio D. So the same concept. The C involved here is 32. So the C involved here should also be 32. To make 2 a 32, we need to multiply by 16. So 5 times 16 becomes 80. Therefore, the common ratio is 3 ratio 12 ratio 32 ratio 80. This is the answer here. Look at the next one. Please try solving it yourself. Price is proportional to the square of weight, and it broke into 1 ratio 2 ratio 2. So we can assume that the total weight was, let's say, 5 grams. So price equals K times W squared and is thus equal to K times 5 squared originally. So originally the price is 25K. Now when it breaks, price equals K times 1 squared, the price of the smaller piece, plus K times 2 squared plus K times 2 squared. Turns out to be K plus 4K equals 9K. 25K became 9K. The difference is 16K on a base of 25K. The answer is 64% drop. Look at the next one. Please try solving it yourself. Now the rent is equal to some fixed rent plus number of guests times the per head expense. Rent is $2,000 when there are 50 guests. So F plus 50K and 3,200 with 100 guests. So F plus 100K. We can solve it. The difference in rent is $1,200 when the difference is 50K. So K equals 1,200 divided by 50. Turns out to be $24. You put 24 as K in any of these two equations and we get F equals $800. The fixed rent is $800. Therefore, with 200 guests, the rent would be F, which is 800 plus number of guests, which is 200 times K, which is 24. So the rent is 800 plus 200 times 24 equals $5,600. That is the answer here. Look at this one now. Salary is equal to some fixed salary plus $100 per car sold. That's a bit less. Poor Jack. If he sells N cars, commission of $100 is beyond the 20 cars. So that's his salary. Now, if he sold 30 cars and the salary was $4,000, it means 4,000 equals F plus 100 times 30 minus 20. So it turns out that F equals $3,000. So his fixed salary is $3,000. And now in June he sold 45 cars. So his salary is going to be $3,000 plus 100 times 45 minus 20. That's $3,000 plus $2,500. The answer is, therefore, $5,500. Please look at this one. Try solving it yourself. The speed of cart decreases by X miles per hour with each additional box loaded in it. With 10 boxes, the speed is 25. With 30 boxes, the speed is 15. So quite intuitively, when the number of boxes increased by 20, the speed reduced by 10. That means for each box, the speed reduces by 0.5 miles per hour. So what would be the speed of the cart with no box? With 10 boxes, it is 25. So with no box, that is 10 boxes fewer. At the rate of 0.5 per box, the speed would be 5 miles per hour greater. So the answer would be 25 plus 5 equals 30. In case you want to solve it a bit more mathematically, the speed with n boxes equals speed with 0 boxes minus number of boxes times some constant that suggests reduction in speed. So now, with the 10 boxes, S10 equals 25 equals S0 minus 10k. With 30 boxes, the speed is 15. So 15 equals S0 minus 30k. So you have two variables, two equations. You can solve it and find the value of S0. It will turn out to be 30. So the right answer here is 30 miles per hour. Now let's practice some GMAT-like questions. A very interesting DS question to solve. Please solve this one. Don't take it easy. It's quite a complex question. Look at the first statement. For an additional minute, he would have paid 10 cents more. Now, the main doubt is that whether 10 cents represents X or whether it represents X divided by 2. That is the main doubt. Now see, if it represented X, then for a $1 bill, the person would have spoken for very long. For the first 5 minutes, the call would have costed him 50 cents, after which the call would become 5 cents per minute. Therefore, he should have spoken for another 10 minutes, for the next 50 cents to make it a $1 bill. But if this were the case, then for an additional minute, because he spoke for more than 5 minutes, the additional minute would not cost him 10 cents, it would cost him 5 cents, and therefore 10 cents cannot be the value of X. So this particular condition can be eliminated. Let's look at this condition. If 10 cents were X divided by 2, then that means X is 20 cents. Now if X is 20 cents for a $1 bill, he would have spoken for 5 minutes. Therefore, for an additional minute, the 6th minute, the price would become half. And yes, it would become 10 cents. So this makes sense. We have a unique answer. 10 cents is X divided by 2. The value of X is 20 cents, and therefore the person spoke for 5 minutes. I reached this answer, 5 minutes, a unique answer using statement 1 alone, and therefore statement 1 is definitely sufficient. Look at the next one. Same doubt that whether 20 cents is X or whether it is X divided by 2. See, if 20 cents were X divided by 2, that means X becomes 40 cents, and for a $1 bill, the person would have spoken for 2.5 minutes. And for an additional minute, because this is still less than 5 minutes, the additional minute would have cost him 40 cents, and not 20 cents. So this condition can be eliminated. 20 cents cannot be X divided by 2. 20 cents is X. This works. We just saw in statement 1 that yes, for a $1 bill, the person would have spoken for 5 minutes. And if the person would have spoken for 1 minute less, it would have cost him 20 cents less. So that also satisfies the condition. And therefore, statement 2 is also sufficient. 1 is sufficient, 2 is sufficient. The right answer is option D. Look at this one. It's a DS question. 2 statements. The population of bacteria grows by a factor K. Okay, so what will be the population 2 hours from now? So right now, the timeline is 0, present. We have to find the population 2 hours later. And whatever is the population right now, 2 hours later, it will be K square times. So let's use the statements now. Statement 1 says 2 hours ago, it was 1 million. So -1, -2. Here it is 1 million, or 10 to the power of 6, but we don't know the value of K. We just know that right now, if this is 10 to the power of 6, this should be 10 to the power of 6 times K to the power of 4. That's all we know. We don't have the value of K. So statement 1 is not sufficient. Look at statement 2. It says that 8 hours ago, the population was 1,000. That is 10 cubed. Again, we can only deduce that if it is 10 cubed here, see 10 hours later, negative 8 to 2 is 10 hours. You see, so 10 hours later, the population will be 10 cubed times k to the power of 10. That's what can be said. We still don't have the value of k. So statement 2 is also not sufficient. Now we need to combine and check. When we combine, we know 10 cubed is the population here. This is 6 hours. So 6 hours later, it has to be 10 cubed times k to the power of 6, and these two have to be equal. So now we can find the value of k. Once the value of k is determined, we will be able to find the population here. Please don't spend your time in finding out the value. For the purpose of clarity, for the purpose of this session, I can very quickly calculate that k equals square root 10. And therefore, the population here will be 10 to the power of 8. But that's not important. What's important is that once you have this equation, you can find the value of k. And then you can find the value here. On the exam, you don't have to. You should not spend time in finding out that absolute value. That is not needed. What's important is that you know that you will get to a unique answer. Combining works, and therefore C is the correct answer choice.